don't scare Negroes today with no badge or no white skin or no white sheet or no white anything else. The police the same way. They put their club upside your head and then turn around and accuse you of attacking them. Every case of police brutality against a Negro follows the same pattern. They attack you, bust you all upside your mouth, and then take you to court and charge you with assault. What kind of democracy is that? What kind of freedom is that? What kind of social or political system is it when a black man has no voice in court, has nothing on his side other than what the white man chooses to give him? My brothers and sisters, we have to put a stop to this. And it will never be stopped until we stop it ourselves. They attack the victim. And then the criminal who attacked the victim accuses the victim of attacking him. Yes, sir. This is American justice. Yes, sir. That's right. This is American democracy. Yes, and those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Right. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. But if you can't prove that a democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me.
Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Saturday, June the 6th, 2020. That was Malcolm X speaking to an audience about police brutality back in 1962. Here we are in America, almost 60 years later, and we in the black community are still being beaten, brutalized, and executed by police officers all across the United States of America. Before getting to the core of today's episode, I want to just mention the names of some of those who are black who have been killed by white violence, white civilians in the United States. This is just a very small list. Ahmaud Arbery, James Byrd, Jordan Davis, Michael Griffith, Yusuf Hawkins, Trayvon Martin, Renisha McBride, Emmett Till. In 12 days or so, 11 days or so, we will be looking at the 5th year commemoration of 9 black parishioners who were murdered by a white civilian, a white man, in a church. Mother AME, Mother Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Those 9 individuals were Sharonda Coleman Singleton, Cynthia Hurd, Susie Jackson, Ethel Lance, Reverend DePayne Middleton, Reverend Clementa Pinckney, Tywanza Sanders, Reverend Daniel Simmons, Myra Thompson. May they rest in power. They all should still be here with us, alive today. When I return, I will be reading just a partial list of black people, black men, black women, black trans individuals who have been shot and killed by police here in the United States. Most of these individuals that you will hear the names of were shot and killed within the last year or two. Some of the names you will not know of. Many of the names you may be familiar with. Some of them were as young as 7 years old. Some of them were as old as 92. When I come back, you will be hearing, uninterrupted, the names, a partial list. Let me remind you, a partial list of black people in the United States of America who have been shot dead by police. One other thing to note: whether a black person is unarmed or not, and in the names you will be hearing, they all were unarmed, but whether they were unarmed or not, they should not be killed. There are white people who are armed to the teeth, who aren't even touched, who aren't even arrested. So please do not tell me about being armed. Do not tell me about complying with orders when you know well that black people comply with orders and they are still murdered, they are still killed, they are still lynched, they are still executed. Do not tell me about how you are inconvenienced by protest. Do not tell me that you wish that they would protest in some other place. Do not tell me that you would support their cause if only they protested over there as opposed to over here. Do not tell me about your life being inconvenienced, your dinner being inconvenienced, your ball game being inconvenienced, your concert being inconvenienced. When black lives, our whole lives, have been inconvenienced and disrupted and ended by police officers on a daily basis here in America and across the world. When I return, once again, the names, a partial list of black people in the United States of America who have been killed by police. Wendell Allen, Tanisha Anderson, Jimmy Atchison, Devon Bailey, Jordan Baker, DeAndre Ballard, Sean Bell, Finan Berhe, Sandra Bland, Rekia Boyd, E.J. Bradford, Rumain Brisbane, Michael Brown, Eleanor Bumpers, Miriam Carey, Philando Castile, Jamar Clark, Stephon Clark, John Crawford III, Terrence Crutcher, Deborah Danner, Chantel Davis, Michael Dean, Ariel Denkins, Amadou Diallo, Patrick Dorismond, Samuel Dubose, Jordan Edwards, Jonathan Farrell, George Floyd, Ezell Ford, Sharice Francis, Terrence Franklin, Shelley Fry, Corin Gaines, Eric Garner, Brandon Glenn, Oscar Grant, Maurice Granton, Freddie Gray, William Green, Dietrich Griffin, Dewan Guillory, Gregory Gunn, Akai Gurley, Miles Hall, Dontre Hamilton, Fred Hampton, Patrick Harmon, Donisha Harris, Jonathan Hart, Anthony Hill, Gregory Hill Jr., Jimmy Lee Jackson, Larry Jackson Jr., Kendra James, Botham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson, James Johnson, Julius Johnson, Catherine Johnston, Betty Jones, Kwame Jones, Charlie Kunang, Quintonio Legrier, Eric Logan, Manuel Loggins Jr., Charlena Lyles, Samuel Mallard, David McAtee, Willie McCoy, Ariane McCree, Kendrick McDade, Tony McDade, Laquan McDonald, Taisha Miller, Yassine Muhammad, Alfred Alongo, Dante Parker, Philip Parnell, Arthur Perry, Kajemi Powell, Sean Reed, Jeremy Reed, Tamir Rice, Jamel Robinson, Jamar Ian Robinson, Tony Robinson, Antoine Rose, Timothy Russell, Keith Lamont Scott, Walter Scott, Jaquavion Slayton, Yvonne Smallwood, Anthony Lamar Smith, Yvette Smith, Alberta Spruill, Ayana Stanley Jones, Alton Sterling, Terrence Sterling, Michael Stewart, Ronald Stokes, Darius Tarver, Stephen DeMarco Taylor, Brianna Taylor, Christian Taylor, Elysia Thomas, Danny Ray Thomas, Pamela Turner, Ryan Twyman, Brandon Weber, Robert Lawrence White, Victor White III, Christopher Whitfield, Melissa Williams, Tarika Wilson, Mario Woods, may they all rest in power. Welcome back. I thought that it would be a good idea to talk about a few of the individuals' names and put a bit more context behind the names. I wish that I could tell you about their lives. Black lives matter. Black lives always have mattered. Black lives will always matter. And what we need is justice. What we need is an end to violent, occupational, murderous policing in the United States of America and elsewhere around the world. We need a completely new system, one that respects the lives of black people, one that respects the lives of brown people, one that respects the lives of Native American people, one that respects every life. Black Lives Matter. Today in North Carolina, there was a memorial service for George Floyd. George Floyd was born in North Carolina. On Tuesday, he will have a burial. There will be the burial of George Floyd, and that will take place in Houston, Texas. Around the United States and across the world, there have been renewed protests for justice and protests against the police who killed George Floyd and against any police who kill black people anywhere on the planet. Against police who kill anybody unlawfully around the planet. Black Lives Matter. That refrain, that truth is being heard around the world, and it is being echoed around the world. It is being chanted around the world. This is not a moment. This is a movement. Black Lives Matter. And in keeping with that call for justice for George Floyd and for Breonna Taylor and for David McAtee, and of course in all the other cases of violence against black people, particularly those where there is no justice, in a vast number of cases, in situations where white people are killing black people, where there is barely or rarely any justice whatsoever. Justice also for Ahmaud Arbery. There is a young man with the last name of Spurlock who was killed in, I believe, Indianapolis this week by a white racist. Justice for him as well. His name may have been Jordan Spurlock. Justice for him and his family. Melissa Williams was just 30 years old. She was assassinated in Cleveland, Ohio, November the 29th, 2012. She was in a car driven by Timothy Russell. I've mentioned this case before in a prior episode, not specifically, but generally. When I talked about a vehicle being shot at and they were shot over 130 times, well, this is the case specifically. There was a 25-minute chase through Cleveland. A cop thought that he heard shots coming from the vehicle. In reality, there were no shots coming from the vehicle. Neither of these individuals had guns, and like I said earlier, even if they had, you do not shoot somebody, killing them, when your life is not in danger. Certainly when the gun is not being pointed at you. There was none of that here. There was no gun being pointed. These two people were followed, Melissa Williams and Timothy Russell, were followed, chased by police on someone supposedly thinking he heard shots. It's always shoot first and never ask questions later. It is shoot first and smear the dead black person later. That is where we are in America. Quite frankly, that is where we have always been in America when it comes to black people being killed, being murdered by police all over the United States. How does a 25-minute chase through Cleveland, in fact, let me back up some more. How does a police officer supposedly thinking he heard shots from a vehicle turn into a 25-minute chase through Cleveland that ends with 13 police officers shooting at that car, shooting at this couple 137 times? 23 of the bullets hit Timothy Russell. 24 bullets hit Melissa Williams. Both of them were obviously killed. Melissa Williams and Timothy Russell were not Bonnie and Clyde. This was not a film. This was not a movie. This was an execution. Who knows? I haven't even bothered to look to see if they were convicted of anything. They were. 6 of those officers indicted. Turned out that there was a wrongful death suit, and the families of Melissa Williams and Timothy Russell got $3 million. At the time, the families of Melissa Williams, she was in the car driven by Timothy Russell. The attorneys for those families said that this shooting is one of the worst examples of police misconduct in American history. I would agree with that, but I wouldn't call it misconduct. I would call it murder. I would call it a lynching. I would call it an execution. How is it that Rekia Boyd ends up being killed? Why was she shot in the back of the head? Why did she have to die? She was just 22 years of age. In Chicago on March the 22nd, 2012, shot in the back of the head by an off-duty Chicago detective. And what's so sick about this is that he fired 5 rounds over his left shoulder through his car window. Over his left shoulder through his car window. Striking a man in the hand and Rekia Boyd in the back of her head. You see, this off-duty cop in Chicago believed that there was a man who had a gun and the man was holding a cell phone. Why, with all their training, can't police differentiate between a gun and a cell phone? In black hands, they have all this trouble figuring out the difference. In white hands, when they see this, they do not have trouble figuring it out. They know the difference. And not only do they know the difference, when a sword is in the hand of a white person, they don't kill them. They don't kill a white person who has a gun, who has ammo, anything. That doesn't happen. This is not about training. This is about systemic executions of black people, black women, black men, and members of the black trans community. This is not about training. This is about a system of whiteness, institutionalized whiteness, institutionalized racism, where the criminal courts allow for cops, be they white, black, Asian, or otherwise, Latino, male or female, to get away with murder, whether it is on video or whether it is not. When I return, a couple more stories that I think you really should hear, so that when some people, specifically white people, say things to me like they are inconvenienced by a protest, and why don't they protest elsewhere? Well, we will protest wherever we please. And I think it's about time that you park your white privilege and use it positively and be far less selfish, far less lazy, and more empathetic and compassionate to the plights of people, specifically in this instance, black people, who are being murdered by police daily in this country and other countries across the world. Welcome back. Just a few more instances of some of the stories behind the names that I've read out here. Jamar Ian Robinson was 26 years old. He was killed by police in East Point, Georgia, in 2016, August of that year. And he was shot 76 times. He did not open the door of his girlfriend's home when the police had knocked on it. So police decided to kick the door in and just shoot indiscriminately. He was shot 67. Let me correct that. He was shot 76 times. Jamar Ian Robinson, 26 years old, shot 76 times by police. Many of these killings by police of black people appear on video. Many of them don't as well. An Air Force veteran, Anthony Hill, 26 years old, unarmed and naked when he was killed in March of 2015. The officer, Robert Olson, was found guilty of aggravated assault, 1 count of making a false statement and 2 counts of violation of an oath by a public officer. He wasn't convicted of murder or manslaughter, though. Some of the people killed had mental health issues. Some of the people killed were grandmothers. Some of the people killed were 7 years old and sleeping in their beds, like Breonna Taylor. I'm going to read to you the ages of some of these individuals. Just the ages. I'm not going to read their names again, but their ages. 19, 17, 19, 31, 26, 19, 54, 7, 26, 30, 20, 92, 24, 20, 21, 20, 21, 18, 26, 23, 26, 41, 24, 18, 31, 17, 20, 19, 32, 24, 26, 22, 31, 43, 22, 18, 25, 36, 25, 28, 12, 34, 36, 43, 19, 50, 25, 29, 43, 19, 24, 26, 19, 58, 24, 37, 32, 31, 40, 43, 38, 15, 22, 34, 27, 50, 21, 24, 23, 22, 28. Many of these individuals were cut down by police officers in the prime of life. Some not even in the prime of life. Many not even in the prime of life. Black Lives Matter. These were everyday individuals. It didn't matter whether they went to college or not. It didn't matter if they had criminal histories or not. It didn't matter whether they were Army veterans or not. Their lives should not be taken. It doesn't matter whether they were armed or not. Everyday lives, everyday people, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, college graduates, non-college graduates, homeless, homes, mentally ill, not mentally ill, The whole gamut. These are people. And I wish I could show you every photograph. On a podcast, obviously that's not possible. But I do urge you to read the stories of these people that you've heard me read the names of today. It would literally take me a full day to tell every story. Not just about how their lives ended violently, but about the kinds of people they were and who they leave behind, who they left behind. Breonna Taylor would have been 27 yesterday. And still, in her case, there have been no arrests of those 3 cops who killed her. Those 3 killers are still on the job as police officers in the Louisville Metro Police Department. There are protests today all over the world. Black Lives Matter. We want justice. We want a different system. This is a movement, not a moment. May everyone whose names I have read out on this episode rest in peace and rest in power. You will never be forgotten.